Today, we have an absolutely incredible guest. I'm honored to have Glenn Mills on here with me. Glenn and I used to race together. He swam for Alabama. I swam for Indiana. We've had some amazing races. My best race ever, and my favorite race, which I lost, and Glenn beat me on it, 200 breaststroke. He used to normally win the 200. I get the 100 because I'd run out of gas by the time we got to the 200, and you wouldn't. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. You're the co-founder of GoSwim.tv. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks, John. Great to see you again.
You too.
I have great memories from way back, and I think at our age, it's good that we still have those memories and we haven't lost them. So
right. So far.
Right.
But I have to say this, but you were the classiest person I've ever raced against. And I've told you that, and I'm also saying it here on the show. You were very, very polite always, and then you beat the pants off everybody, and then you congratulate them for great swims themselves. And just and I see the same thing. Like, I see your work. You do a phenomenal job. I've seen your, the videos that you've made. And I think anybody that works with you has going to have a great experience, and they'll carry that with them for years. I've known, I know I have, with my racing relationship with you, and I've just got tremendous respect for you. I've got some questions to get started here, and one of the things, because I met you, I think the first time in Cincinnati, right? You were swimming for the Cincinnati Pepsi Marlins.
Yeah.
And
yep. You came in. It was I remember it was my senior year, and we were at Region 6s.
That's right. And I think it was it was a very shallow but 50-meter pool.
Cincinnati Keating Natatorium was like 3.5 feet at the shallow end. It would go down after the bulkhead coming back. I think it kind of sloped down to about 7 feet, 6.5, 7 feet. But it was the majority of the pool was shallow. The sides would slope down. Not a particularly fast pool. Had teeny little gutters in it. A lot of fast swimming in it, but the pool itself, it was back in the early days of Rocky. And so when the Rocky movies were coming out,
right,
and we'd go to these beautiful facilities like IUPUI and Austin, and we'd look at them and go, oh my gosh, what would it be like to train here? And then we'd go back to this dungeon sort of place, and I think it was good for us because
what I was going to say, that it's so special when you don't train in a great pool, and then you go to one, that you're going to be faster. It's very exciting. We trained a couple times in Indianapolis Natatorium, but that was about 50 miles away from Bloomington, and so we had the Royer pool, which at the time when it was built was great, but then when we were swimming in it, kind of was a little bit antiquated, and it was great in a way because when you left, you always went to a better pool everywhere you went, right?
Exactly.
So like you said with Rocky, right? Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about, and I'd love to learn this because I don't know enough. What got you started into swimming, and how old were you and things like this?
So I started when I was 5 years old, and it was basically, I have two older brothers. My oldest brother is 5 years older than I am. And so they were on a swim team. It was 10 and 8 and 5. Obviously, because of carpooling and different stuff like that, I had to go. And so I used to go to practice with them, and I was basically the team mascot. Rather than just sitting on the side or sitting in the stands, I would sit on the side and I'd swim a half lap here and there. And so that was basically it. I went to swimming because it was family oriented. It was something that I did with my brothers, and it was basically because mom couldn't leave me home by myself. So I got dragged into it by them, and I was an absolutely horrible age group swimmer. Probably
I was right there with you.
Yeah. I was short, fat, and slow. That's the best way to describe me as an age group swimmer. The way that I like to describe it is my two older brothers took pity on me because they knew I couldn't do anything. And so they used to take me down to the local pool in our development. During rest period, they knew the guards, and so they would work on my stroke. And so I think as the story goes, I think I got my first ribbon at 12 or 13 years old. And it was on a relay, and the guys on the relay were used to getting medals. They were upset that they only got a ribbon, but I didn't know they gave prizes for swimming, so I was all excited.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, but then everything kind of changed at 14, and a body started growing into the technique, and there was something else pretty dramatic that happened at that time that changed the desire to work, and and how I felt about things. And it was a life-changing event that took place that all coincided with the maturation of the body, the maturation of the mind, the desire to perform, from first ribbon at 13 or whatever to the one of the fastest in the world by 18. It was a pretty quick transition.
Pretty quick climb.
Yeah.
I think we met probably when I was around 19 or 20. So, right. Something like that. I think you're a little bit older than I am.
Yeah, no, I think we raced the first time. You were 17, I was 18.
Okay.
So I think we were still in high school. You came to Cincinnati, because I think it was right after I had broke the national record in the 100 breasts, and it was like a week later. We were swimming at regionals, and I think I went 2/100ths of a second slower. So I think it went 55.44 at the state meet and 55.46 at Keating in that old pool. And you were right next to me. I think you went 56 something at that meet, if I remember correctly. So you were right there chomping on my heels. So that helped a lot. But it's funny, that pool record stood 38 years. It was just broken about a year and a half ago. That was pretty cool. It's nice to have something that old, but eventually everything has to go, right?
Yeah, I always look at it this way. It's funny. Anytime somebody breaks one of my records, which there's not too many of them left, if there are any, somewhere in a wooded area somewhere where there might have been a pool in or something. For me, I really find I like it. I want them to, right? Because you want everybody to progress. And so for me, I love it when somebody breaks my record, and then I actually write a letter to them when I find it out and congratulate them, because I know I worked hard to get there, and I'm sure they worked harder. Tell me a little bit about, because you've had such an incredible career, pluses, and I know that 1980 was just very painful for everybody that was involved in that. Luckily, at that point, I wasn't at that speed, so I didn't have to go through that part of it. Tell us a little bit about the highlights of your swimming career, if you would.
The biggest race was, for me, in my entire career, was that high school state meet right before you and I met. And it was because my middle brother Kyle had died of cancer when I was a freshman in high school, and I had that was the big life-changing event for me. That basically, from a training perspective, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. And so I would just go to the pool and just beat the what out of myself, just trying to get that physical pain to take away any other emotions. By the time I was a senior, I had promised him that I would win the Ohio High School State Championship for him someday, because as a junior in high school, he lost his right leg. And so really tough to swim breaststroke with one leg. He actually became a faster freestyler because our flutter kick in our family was so poor that by not having a flutter kick, his freestyle improved. But he was actually a great golfer. His senior year in high school, he averaged 39 for 9 holes of golf with one leg, and that was with 2 rounds over 50 because of chemotherapy the day before. It was overdose, and so he was sick to his stomach. This is what I grew up witnessing, what true courage was. And so if I would go to the pool and practice, yeah, totally. It's Dave Denniston and I have long conversations about what is called forced pain and elected pain. Someone that has a disease or an injury or a degenerative disease or whatever, they have forced pain. And for those of us that don't have forced pain, to sit around and complain that we're sore from working out, you got to look at the whole perspective of the world. You're lucky to have that pain, to be able to induce that pain on yourself, to not have it forced upon you, where every day you wake up and you have to either take medicine, or you have to do stretching exercises, or like my brother had to hop down the hall to get to the bathroom. When you change that perspective, when you're in working hard, there's always a little bit more that you can get out of it. The goal of winning the high school state meet, as I like to say, I over prepared a little bit and ended up making the Olympic team. But the thing that I remember the most was fulfilling that promise to him, after he was gone. And so the most important race of my life was that high school state meet. Obviously what came after that was winning senior nationals, winning Olympic trials, winning NCAAs. There's a little bit of everything except like that really big meet. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed being that good at something, but never took it for granted that it meant anything more than what it was. It was just racing. And for you to say that I was kind, it means a lot to me, because I never wanted to give the swimming more perspective than what it deserved. My father always told me that victory is a two-edged sword. that, the more excited you get, someone's on the other side very sad. And so you have to go and immediately make sure your friend's okay, because you're going to see him again, and you might be on the other side of it the next time.
You
So
certainly, it made that come true in the way that you handled it. Just exceptional. I was taught when I was young. I had three major coaches in my life. Counsilman, of course, being one of them, and then going back to my high school coach, Jim Keogh, and prior to that, a guy named Russ Ferris, and he was in YMCA, and he had taught us all to go and shake hands and wish the other person good luck. After that, you try as hard as you can to beat the pants off them. And then when you finish, you congratulate them on a great race. And you come back and talk to your coach. He says, to the degree that you do that, you're going to be successful here. To the degree you don't, right? We don't consider you so successful until you're able to be a great sport.
Right.
You're not going to be, in his eyes, a great sportsman, no matter how fast you go. Doing that my whole life. And sometimes you get behind the blocks when you're at that level where you're and nobody's shaking hands. And I always shook hands. And it was a big deal to me. And to find somebody that had that same type of attitude and demeanor, you just carried it out the best I've ever seen. And my hat is completely off to you. Dealing with your brother, that type of experience changes your life in a very deep level. I'm wondering if that's why you're so introspective, because you seem like you really understand a lot about who you are.
Still trying to figure it out, right?
More of being introspective.
No, there you
never
go.
ends, right?
Yeah, I guess it's trying not to take anything for granted, because especially when you get to be our age, you just went through something traumatic. And any one of us at any moment, this could be it. And what have we left behind? And you and I spoke before about going to campgrounds. You've got to leave it better than you arrived there. If I'm remembered in my life for anything, other than my kids and my family and how they think of me and remember me, if from a societal standpoint, if people remember me, they're going to remember me for the body of work that I gave. The thousands of videos that I've contributed. And if they end up on YouTube or whatever, I think my work is going to far outlive me. At least I hope it does. I think it's pretty impossible that it doesn't in today's digital world. And somewhere in that body of work, there will be something that benefits somebody at some point. And to me, that's, I think that means that and this is the toughest part. I know it's just swimming. I get that it's just swimming. I get we're just doing drills and techniques and it seems so silly to be focused so hard on it when there's so many larger issues in the world these days. From our perspective, the idea is that if there are people interested in it, if there are people practicing it every day, if there's something that we can do somehow that helps them get a little bit better, that maybe they become a better swimmer, that gets them into a better school, that gets them a better job where they can communicate or donate back into society, then these silly little swim drills and things that we put out could potentially have a positive impact on the world, because there is something that's making somebody feel better.
It's a way to connect right together. You both have an interest, and then what's transferred is so much more. I'm not normally into a lot of poetry, but and that type of thing. But there's an incredible person that somebody told me this recently, Maya Angelou, and she said, you'll basically, to sum it up, you'll forget what somebody said to you, what they did, but you'll never forget the feeling, right? How they made you feel. And I have to say, from having the honor of racing you and to have your competitor give you that feeling that lasts a lifetime. And so I'm going to thank you for that. And I do take that with me all my life. So tell me more, since we got this, you obviously had some tremendous highlights. With highlights go lowlights, right, at the same time. That's part of it, right? So you have these incredible things that you win, and then you lose one that you really wanted to. In this case, I know you guys all have experienced some great pain when it was taken away from you, instead of, you didn't lose a race, but somebody kind of changed with their decisions, and that was tough. But tell us about where your swimming journey has led you.
from a geography standpoint, I've been to every continent except the Arctics for swimming, from Korea to China to Japan, Alaska. I mean, it's all over the place, and all to share or to compete. When I was younger, it was you'd go to compete. And then as I got older, you go to share and experience cultures and see how other people teach and how they approach things. It's been very interesting, to the point where when we left New York City, we bought an RV. We spent a year and a half traveling around the United States, visited 80 teams, filmed 10,000 lengths of video, talked to so many coaches and swimmers and parents, and really kind of learned what the grassroots of America is in swimming, where the victories are, where the problems are. It was a very eye-opening sort of thing. So it's been an adventure, for lack of better terms. I mean, from living on the Eastern Shore in Maryland on a little island called Kent Island. It's not very little, but it's not very heavily populated. Left that island to go to the island of Manhattan, millions and millions of people.
That's a big island.
It's a big island. That's a big
People
island.
wide, right?
Yeah, exactly. But how cool it was to experience life there for almost 6 years, and how different the culture is, and how people, when you visit New York City, it's very intimidating. It's, there's so much stuff going on. You're not really sure where you are. When you live there, it's the nicest place in the world. At least it was. I know that it's different right now, but when we lived there, it was, you could literally walk down the street. You go into your local restaurant, they know your name, they get your drink ready and everything. It is exactly like that.
So you find your little niche basically right in your home there.
The only time you go outside your 2-block areas to celebrate something or you're going to go to a fancy restaurant, but the hardware stores down the street, everything that you need is right there. All the restaurants might be 3 or 4 blocks, but it's a very close area. We loved it. The only thing I miss about it is how much it costs. Right. So it's very, very expensive, but it was a wonderful place to live and a great place to experience. So I'm glad we've been able to do that. And now living in Arizona, completely on the other side of the country, this is my favorite spot that I've ever been, to be honest with you. I've got the pool out back. It's sunny all the time. Yeah, it gets hot. Just stay in the shade.
We're going to talk about that pool too. That's a good.
It's a great pool. But
every time I heard about you, because we both work with swimmers, and anytime somebody would say, I'm going to New York City and talk about swimming, I say, if you get a chance to talk to Glenn Mills or work with him, do it. It'll be one of the best experiences you ever had, and you'll remember for a lifetime. And I truly believe anybody that gets a chance to work with you, they'll remember you the rest of their life.
One of my favorite students is an older gentleman from Rio de Janeiro that would work with me once every 3 months in New York City. He had business in New York City. He follows me on Instagram. He has 0 followers, has made 0 posts, but this is an incredibly successful man from Brazil. Has a very popular company. Every once in a while, I'll get this text from him over Instagram. I'll just get this message. I was in the ocean today and I was remembering bicep on my face, bicep on my ear. He said, I felt so elegant and so smooth, and just getting these emails from people that I haven't seen for years and years and years. That's those tentacles that go out of people that you've helped, and they'll always be part of my family.
I remember one time I got a message back and it was so funny. So I came back and I guess he talked with you and he says, so Glenn says to say hi, and that you remember on that race that he beat you. And I loved it. And it was
oh my gosh,
so funny.
This picture behind me, I forgot that it's there. We just had a remodel go on. We had a leak in the kitchen, so we've had to redo the kitchen. So this picture is in my office now. So I was staying at John Moffat's house to do some work. And so he invited me to stay at his house. I was out in LA. I walked up, he's got his pictures and things. And there's a picture of John and Jimmy Carter, from when we met the president. And in the background I'm next to him because it's Moffat Mills. And so we're next to each other. And so I had just gone and John was next. And so I said, oh my gosh, it's so cool. There's a picture of me in your house. And he said, yeah. I said, it's funny. I have a picture of you in my house too. Well, this is the picture, and that's me passing him on the last lap of NCAA.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
He gives me so much grief. He gives me so much grief for it. But the thing is, he's still one of my best friends. To beat John as few times as I did was one of those things that it meant a lot to me. I know that he wasn't happy with it, but we joke about it quite a bit. But he was, the same. He was just such an incredible person that, there's true love for the guy. So just like, like Craig Beardsley, we've got this small circle of guys that went through stuff way back then that were still, some of the best friends.
People. I don't know, John. I can tell you that he's the only swimmer, and up to the end of college, he's the only swimmer I ever swum that I never beat. I did not beat him once. You've done something that I have never done, a couple of them. Right? And I never beat him. Although I have to say this, I was beating him in Olympic trials by like 2 body lengths at the 25, which you can imagine, right? That's me, right? And by the 50, you could see his feet. Which wasn't a good thing for me. Yeah, that I only beat him.
I only beat him when he made mistakes. As soon as he stopped making mistakes, I stopped beating him. Then I retired.
Yeah, I would. It's funny. I would love to someday do an interview with him. I don't know him well enough, but hopefully we can get some time to.
Absolutely, great guy.
Yeah, he's amazing. Take me behind the block with you for a second in Olympic trials where you won that event. Walk up the block with me for a second. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'd just gone really fast at indoor senior nationals, broke David Wilkie's meet record. David Wilkie 4 years before had broken the meet record at nationals and then gone to Montreal and won the Olympics. So here I am, just like, okay, the path is just going down. Then all the talk of the boycott came around, and then obviously Olympic trials was a bit of a downer. I remember I didn't swim well in prelims, and I remember getting back over to the team, and I threw my towel down or my goggles or whatever, and I spent the majority of that day being yelled at by Denny and Frank in their room at the hotel, teaching me what the responsibilities of a leader is, and teaching me how the impact that my attitude can have, positive or negative, on the team was something that I didn't have a choice about, that they were going to demand that I had a positive impact no matter what happened in the race at night, that it was a true life lesson about being a little kid. And even though I had learned a lot of perspective, I still was just a young kid racing at a big meet, and, stomped my feet a little bit after I didn't get what I wanted. And so my coaches basically reamed me out for an hour in between prelims and finals, and deservedly so. So I went up to the blocks worried more about how I was going to carry myself than how I was going to swim. I felt that it was more important that whatever happened at the end of the race, I was going to present a positive image to my teammates. And it turns out that the race turned my way toward the end. And I was fortunate to touch John out and win it and make the Olympic team. I was so focused on making sure I didn't disappoint my coaches and my teammates. I wasn't worried about me. I was worried about how was I going to impact, because we were going to win the meet, both men and women, because they scored it that year, because it was kind of a hybrid Olympic trials and nationals. And so the women had won the indoor nationals at Austin, and Cincinnati had the chance, like the first time in 20 years since Mission Viejo wasn't going to win. They had like a streak of ridiculous number of national championships. And here we brought in some of the guys from Indiana. I remember I was on the C medley relay. So I don't know how many times that's happened, but somebody makes the Olympic team is on the C medley relay. We had 4 of the top 10 in the U.S. in the 200 breaststroke at Olympic trials. It was me, Bill Barrett, Greg Higginson, and Greg Rodenball. And so Barrett got second in the 100 breast, and Higo was, I think, 6th in the 100 breast. I was 10th in the 100 breast, and I think Greg was like, somewhere right around there. So we had 4 guys, and I think all of us scored top 16. And so there I was on the C medley relay. So this was all about the team, this whole thing, even though the buildup was about the Olympics and all that. For us, our focus was, okay, you have to finish this job. We're gonna win the national championship. We're gonna be the best team in the country. The thought process that I was letting them down in that was really devastating to me, and to realize that I was like a spoiled little brat after I didn't swim fast enough in the morning.
So there was a lot of growing up that occurred in that hour and a half. It's amazing how much mental development can occur with a tiny thing, a sliver of time.
Yeah, wow. And it stays with you forever. Right. For your entire life. It's such imagine you're in between prelims and finals of Olympic trials. You're getting yelled at, and in some ways you're thinking, wait, these guys are supposed to be making sure they don't upset me. Well, the life lesson was more important than whether or not I did what I wanted to do that night. And I
That's
think the life lesson
so
was,
outstanding, right?
yeah, great. Still, Denny and Frank lives down in Tucson. We see him every once in a while, even though, he's got all the Arizona roots. Now we're at ASU, but still, he is one of my favorite people in the world. So is Denny. And so those lessons that they taught me, I hope to carry on.
Now, right here, kind of a chart that shows and tries to explain the different pieces of the swimming world and the learning and education of it. The top being, scientists and experts that bring new information to the community of swimming. Then we have interpreters or educators. That's kind of where fluid mechanics. And I think that you don't do a lot of research. Is that right, or you do?
Research is basically done in the backyard.
Okay, got it. In your own research.
Mostly about, yeah.
Got it. And so when we look at like a laboratory or something like that, but then we work in here in this area, we're what's called a visual interpreter. And you do some of that too, because you do a lot of like videos and help people understand things about swimming. We do that as well through our avatars, and we present usable ideas on how people can learn and put it to work. So a lot of times on the scientist level, the explanation might be a little bit tougher to get across. So that's what we try to do, is help them understand where things fit. And so that coaches that are on the deck a lot of times don't have time to sift through all the research and try to find out and understand it and then finally take it to the deck. So these are some things like where your company helps a lot, where we hopefully come in and help a lot. And then they're able to deliver it into the pool with the swimmer. And you also, as well as we, also go right to the coaches and right into the water with the swimmers and helping them as well. So based on, does that make sense to you on
Yep.
how we look? Okay. So then when we look at the cornerstones of performance here, this is particularly of athletic performance. We have the green girl over on the left here, which represents fuels like sleep, hydration, nutrition, and oxygen. Those are the consumables that go through the energy systems, the endurance system, the speed system, and the explosive system. So for instance, for you and I, when you're, always winning the 200 and me more than 100, we find normally, you probably would have a stronger endurance system and I'd have a maybe more explosive on that side. And so those play factors in what you do and how you do it. And then over here you have strength, flexibility. The fuels, sleep, hydration, like the strawberry you ate yesterday, right, runs through one of those energy systems depending on what you're doing, and it helps the muscle contract with that energy. And the muscle contracts around the bones, right, which would be the skeleton, which would be your technique, how you move that body. The technique gets you to where you want to go. And the whole question is, do you know where you want to go and how to get there? And so that would be the brain or the mind. And in the middle is synergy, how you put that all together and how you bring it together. So this is generally what we look at as how we see all the different major aspects. And so my question is just looking at this chart, and if you were kind of stack ranking them as the most important aspects when you get to like a real challenging, where you're really challenged in swimming later, what would you say you'd put as kind of one of the top issues in your opinion?
Well, if you're looking at if you're talking the Olympic level or that level, technique is pretty much already taken care of. The strength and flexibility and injury management, you've already been training for how many years in order to be to that point. Definitely the fuels become more important. I mean, back when we swam, we never talked about any of that stuff. Energy systems as well, very important. The brain is massive. How you think about it, where your mindset is, how calm you are, how anxious you are, how you deal with these situations. I would weigh at the Olympic level, I'd more heavily gear on the left side of the chart. At the development end of things, I would veer towards the right side of it. But as I tell everyone, you don't have to be an Olympian to live the life of an Olympian. You have to just put the same amount of focus in. And that's the whole thing. And so what that is someone that may not have the potential to be an Olympic athlete, if they want to experience what it's like, they can work as hard, they can sacrifice as much, they can not go out, they can make sure that the friends that they're surrounded by have the same goals that they do, they can eat right, they can stay away from parties and different things that are going to impact them adversely. But they have to have some enjoyment in their life, because if it's just all just going to practice and back, then you just become a robot and you lose that artistry or that attack sort of thing. It is the entire package. So it's the synergy in the middle for, I'd say, the majority of the sport. It's balance. It's always balance.
So we say something kind of hokey here at Fluid Mechanics, and we point to this particular figurine and we say, you have to swim in a star to be one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right. And so when you say the brain is massive, you obviously have been in some situations where that was a key player in there. What kind of programs did they have back when you were swimming to train your brain? I know they had programs to train, your energy systems, in-water training, things like this, strength training. We had programs, right? Technique, we had systems. What do you have for the brain that they trained you with?
I remember Denny and Frank brought a guy in to Cincinnati. I remember specifically going through some mental exercises with the sports psychologist. And basically, one of the things, I think the thing that I took away from it, there were all kinds of different drills and exercises that we did. The thing that I took away from it that was very evident to me after I had learned what it was, the more you seek something, the less chance that you'll get it. One of the illustrations is if you want to make a lot of money, if your goal is to be a billionaire and all you do is work to be a billionaire and then someday you achieve it, once you get to be a billionaire, well, what's that billionaire want? He wants 2 billion. Now it's a game. So now it's, okay, I'm going to chase Elon Musk, so it's a game at that point. So you never have enough of what it is that you seek. If what you seek in training is pain, you never get enough pain. And so I know this sounds a little weird, but the idea that, and we've all been in these sets where you're halfway through a set that is going to hurt, and you get into this zone where now it doesn't hurt enough. You're killing yourself in it, and you just keep going and going and going. And the more you seek that pain, the harder it is to achieve a level that you can't take anymore. What that meant to me is that in an event, so you're swimming a race, and from one stroke to the next, you see the guy pulling away from you. All of a sudden, fear comes into your head. And this fear that, oh my gosh, this hurts so bad. And that pain now you're not seeking pain, you're avoiding pain. And so by avoiding,
it's hunting you now.
Yeah. And then it's over. So you have to treat it like something that if you're in a race, you want to hurt as much as possible. There can't be enough. It doesn't matter if that guy's starting to pull away from you. You have got to go somewhere most people don't go. And so it's seeking something that you can never, it's wanting something so bad that you can't get enough of it. Eventually the race is over and you're like, whew, that was tough. I mean, that's selected pain, so it eventually ends. The race will end. And then next thing you know, you have 40 years to sit back and say, man, I had a good race that day.
So the mental aspects come into training, especially as you get better. The mental and emotional aspects come in there, and they also come into when you look at like the amount of training, because a lot of people we've had on the program say it's 90% mental, right? It's and who knows what the number is, and I think it's different for every person, but I think a lot of times that we hear the same stories. I had somebody come in that helped me, that gave me some information, but it's like a sliver of how much, right? If it's 90% mental, then I'm thinking you should train your brain pretty heavily, but I don't know if there's necessarily enough brain training out there that can really help. So we've developed a program called Mindworks that does specifically that. We work specifically with swimmers to develop that. And then we develop for swimming. We present it to the Navy SEALs, to SOCOM. We're working with militaries with it. But it's a very interesting training program for the brain. Increases your ability to focus. If you can imagine in your races, that would be a big deal, right? And then harness emotion and get it to use it for you instead of against you, right? Or to do nothing for you. And then, like you said, if fear's hunting you versus you're hunting it, that's a very different, right? And I think that's what you're describing, right? Totally. This is emotion.
Yep.
And then how to progress and increase. So if you had the ability to progress faster, to harness that emotion to help you do that, and to focus on the things that you needed to get that done, how would that impact somebody, you think, if they have that type of training?
Well, it'd certainly bring a preparedness to the events. And there'd be less questioning. It's like being in the ready room. And we even had the ready room way back when you and I swam.
Yep.
And in the ready room, it's a game that's going on with no one that really knows what's about to happen. And so the game has already started. Who looks the calmest? I mean, the most famous ready room is Chad Leclos and Michael Phelps, with Michael with his headphones on and Chad doing shadow boxing.
Right.
One looks completely confident that there's no way he's going to lose, and the other's just totally chill and just getting more and more pissed off. Chad, unbelievable swimmer. I don't think that was a good move to piss off Michael
I
Phelps
don't
more
either.
than you needed to.
We call poking the bear. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Michael's pretty good.
And you know what? If you do that to a weak swimmer, they'll collapse. If you do that to a strong swimmer, they're just going to recognize that you have insecurities about this race. Right. They can see it. You wouldn't do it if they were confident they were going to win. You wouldn't try to distract them. You'd be focused on yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a great need for more mental training and mind training for athletes, especially these days. They're being challenged so much with COVID, with life-changing things that no one ever considered being involved in athletics. But it is that balance, that synergy of life. And when something is thrown so out of whack, this hopefully should be seen as their solace, their place to go to get away from the realities of the world and to just be an athlete and go back and forth in the pool and think about things that matter in that instance. They're very challenged in the regular life, that a lot of that I think creeps in. And so to be able to focus a little bit more, like you said, I think would be a huge advantage to someone that has that skill.
Yeah, I find the reason we developed it, actually, we had a swimmer that was very young, and she was having trouble with focus. And she was going to be real tall. Her dad's like 6'8", her mom's almost 6 feet. And she was like 10 years old, and she was ready to grow, but she wasn't there yet. And they were putting her in classes that were remedial because she couldn't focus well. And we recognized right away, because I'm pretty heavy into education, that like this child needs a little more focus and a little more time to help her understand. So we started drawing pictures. Little by little, she started to understand it. She ended up graduating valedictorian in her class. It had, right? Yeah. And they were going to put her in these remedial program and track her in the wrong direction. Here they're taking a valedictorian, not knowing it. And right. It wasn't just us, but it was, it's important to recognize that. And I mean, you and I, the same type of thing, if they recognize how we learn, because there's lots of different styles of learning, it would change so much and open so many doors.
Yeah, I was on the other end of the spectrum from the valedictorian. It was like the flip it. I got that award.
I'm telling you, we lived a closer life than you think. You were talking about the need for swimming people to basically be able to command their own pool time, I believe, right? Can you tell us just a little bit about your thoughts and what you've done to take care of that?
Living what I would say for the past 25 years, a more nomadic existence in swimming, not having a centralized pool that I'm going to every day. I've done a lot of volunteer work. There's never been a time that I didn't coach. And even when I quit coaching, I didn't stop coaching. I just stopped taking money for it. And so I would volunteer. I had the opportunity to work with Dave Durden for a while at University of Maryland before he went to Cal, learned a ton of stuff from him. Spent a lot of time on different club decks, like with Rachel in New York City. I would go from group to group every day. And so I'd teach from the young kids all the way up to the national team, and just acting as an assistant or maybe taking over a few sets on a given day that I was there, working at the U.S. Naval Academy with Bill Roberts, coaching those guys a couple days a week. There's always been a way to be in touch with it. And within that, I've always wanted to teach, do clinics, all the general stuff that you do to share the information. And make a living. It's been on numerous occasions that I've started to work somewhere where things started to pick up, that the pool would then look at me and say, okay, well, we want more money for it. You're bringing more people in. I don't own the pool. And so whatever they want to do with their pool, that's up to them. But I just don't like when the rules change halfway down. You get a game set up and then the rules change.
We've had the same experience.
Yeah,
tremendously. Yep.
I don't own the pool, so you're basically going to do whatever they say. Basically means you got to go look for a new pool. In the mid '90s, I was upstate New York doing some work, and I bought an endless pool because I would work all day on something that didn't necessarily fulfill me from a teaching standpoint, and then I'd go home, and for 2 hours a night, I would teach young swimmers in an endless pool in a little bump out room that I built on the back of the house. It was a lot of fun. it didn't give every answer possible, but it gave enough answers that you could sit there and cover 95% of the people and give them something. I've always wanted to get back to there. And so even when we were looking at what house to buy, we specifically were looking to buy a house where I could put an endless pool in the backyard. So we've got this house here in Scottsdale, went to the city before we bought it, looked at all the setbacks and, what are the easements on it? And, can I do this there? Contacted Endless Pools, said, here's the measurements. This is what I want to buy. I need the fastest pool you got. And so we worked through the design with them. I rented a backhoe, went in the backyard, dug a big hole, was taking loads of dirt out to the street and trying to
yourself. I love it.
Oh yeah, I did it myself. I hired the concrete company to pour the slab because if there's one thing I wasn't confident enough was my ability to level concrete.
Yeah.
So
I used to work for stonemason, so I know what you mean.
Yeah. So they got that done, and as soon as it hardened enough, there I was. I'd be, Rachel be down in there holding up one of the steel walls, and I'd go into the garage and carry another one out, and she'd have to stabilize them, and I'd start bolting them together. I built the whole pool myself, dug the trenches, built the stuff for the hydraulic pump to go on. Have a great friend that has helped us out on other things on the house design standpoint that finished it for us, and it looks beautiful. It's the most beautiful pool that I've ever had. It's wider than most pools because I know that I'm going to have big athletes that come here. It's very fast. It goes down to 51 per 100 yard pace, is all the ads say. But the majority of lessons that I teach are done in the 120 to 140 range. And so it's not until the Olympians get here that you have to crank it down to where they can do some training.
So at the 51, it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. It's so hard. It seems not that I can do a 51 in a regular pool anymore, but from what they tell me, it's harder. Breaststroke. I can do one stroke. I can push off one stroke and then I go back. But it's from a teaching perspective. The joke is when I ask someone to do something, they have mirrors underneath them, 2 mirrors underneath them at different angles. They have a mirror above them, and I'm standing about 2 feet away. And so I'll tell them to do something and I'll tell them to focus on their hands. And I say, how did you do? And they said, I think I did pretty well. And I say, you see, I'm standing right here, right? You saw it in the mirror. I'm standing right here and we're videotaping it. How'd you do? You can't hide this. Well, my hand was sweeping out. Okay. So there we are. Now we're honest with each other again. Let's go. Let's try it again.
Clears it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People want to see your shows, by the way. How do they see the GoSwim.tv shows? What do they do?
Over the past, 20 some years, there's 3,000 videos that have been created on GoSwim.tv. That's fully searchable from the standpoint that, anything that you want to look for, it's pretty easy to find there. And so GoSwim.tv, all the socials, of course, are the standard social media stuff, which is Instagram is GoSwim TV. YouTube, I think, is GoSwim. That's basically it. I mean, to see it running, obviously, it looks less intimidating there than when you're in it.
Okay. How big is that pool?
It's 14 feet long and 9 feet wide.
Wow.
And so the standard width of these are about 7 feet wide. The extra width on it makes the water a little smoother. I can fit more people in it. Like I have some triathlete groups that come here, and so we'll put 2 to 3 people at a time in. And what they'll do is we'll set the water and they'll circle out, and then we do peer teaching as well. So,
so one would swim and the other 2 would wait, and then okay,
just keep the water running. They do 20 to 30 strokes. They have an assignment to do within that 20 to 30 strokes. Might be head position, hips, rotation, extension, whatever it is. And then the next person jumps in and we just go through that. So I knew I needed it bigger for that. From an investment standpoint, what is the saying? It's better to be lucky than smart. I finished the construction on this in December of 2019. And when COVID hit, there were a lot of athletes that had no place to go. And so we had Olympians and professional triathletes that would come here 3, 4, 5 days a week and train. And so the pool was running maybe 6 to 7 hours a day at top speed, which ended up being a very expensive electric bill. it served its purpose for the community, and some swimmers are still doing really well today. They don't come here anymore. They're swimming down at ASU, but they're doing great. So it kind of held them through that rough couple months that we had where no one could do anything. No pools were open anywhere.
Right.
And I know that other
pool, or it's all
Yeah,
heated
yeah.
by the sun.
No, it's got its own heater in it. Obviously, the big thing here is not heating it, but cooling it. So in the summer, like right now, there's a big shade over the entire backyard. That's not in that picture. And then I have a small home-built aeration system with a pump and a sprinkler that just aerates the water, that I can keep the water fairly cool at that point. If I were just to leave it covered with a safety cover and no cover on top, it would be 100 degrees in the water and no one would be able to do anything.
Right.
So
And
cooling,
so
it's a big deal here.
this is really something I wanted to bring out, is that, and we're building something called the ACD pipeline to help people understand how to develop swimming and the whole swimming community, because it's such a great thing for all of us. We've been in our whole lives.
Right.
It's a great thing to do. Your whole life is impacted by it. And if you're thinking about it as a parent, you want your child in there. It's not just who is the fastest. It's really everybody in our swimming community is important to us, and we want to see them develop and have success. If you don't have the ability to keep your pool time under your control, this can be a very difficult thing. You can be have a lot of struggles with that, and this is one way that you can get that more solidified, if I'm right.
If you had the ability to go from the endless pool, which is where you're going to learn and train and hone the skills, and then jump into a regular pool for practical application, that's the best scenario. The second best scenario is just having an endless pool, because you can actually get more work done in the endless pool, in my opinion, than you can from a teaching perspective in a 1 or 2 lane 25-yard pool in your backyard. It's also less expensive, I think, than building one of those pools.
And the reason why is that they're right there. Is that right? So you can stop them.
It's right there. Oh, you do 2 strokes. I know whether you're doing it right or wrong. I've got a stick with a noodle on the end of it. I just tap you on the head and say, okay, stop. That's not right. Why let them imprint something over and over again?
Right.
And so you're in a regular pool, they streamline, they push off, you're chasing them down the pool, yelling at them, trying to get them to stop. I can just stop the water. And then as far as the mirrors,
right there, done.
it's in my hand all the time. And the pool is actually run by an app. My daily swims are actually, I press a button, there's a workout that I have written in, and then it just takes me through the workout. And I just sit in there. I swim like an old man now, John. I have a second Apple Watch in my cap. I have the Finis streaming player over my ears. I'm listening to Led Zeppelin and stuff, and I'm just in there swimming for like a half hour with a snorkel on. I never pick my head up. And,
I'm surprised you're not listening to God Bless America or something while you're going there.
I'd have to stand up. I'd have to stand up. Oh
right.
My God, row your boat. I would get into such a rhythm in that. I would be like, oh my, just kill me now. You'll laugh about this. The water speed that I set it on, no matter what I'm doing, I can swim the same speed freestyle and breaststroke. Doesn't make any difference. So
I think my breaststroke was almost as fast as my freestyle when I went to Indiana. They finally straightened it out.
Same here.
Glenn, I just want to thank you. I could talk to you all day. I thank you so much for being here with us. It's just a pleasure, and hopefully you'll come back on the show again sometime when you have some time. And I really appreciate it. It's wonderful.
Thanks, John.
Great
to see you again, buddy.
All right, you
as well.
Take care.
All right.